Coming to you from Thomson High School, this is the Bulldog Breakdown. Join us as we discuss scores and stats, as well as all the X's and O's of Thomson athletics directly with the coaches themselves.
Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Wyatt Lowe. I'm a junior at Thomson High School, and this is the Bulldog Breakdown with my co-host Bill Beckham and our coach Youngblood.
All right, Coach, you had a game last Friday night, the first game of the season, and you had a lot of players. You probably tell us the exact number, that was their first time they'd ever been out on a real game and started for the first time. And I've always been told that a lot of people say that the first part of the season, the first game, is the one where a lot of kids learn the most because it's the first time out there. How many new starters did you play, and did you feel like they adjusted, and what about them?
It ended up being about 12 kids for the first time out of 22 actually starting. We had about 4 freshmen that played and a plethora of sophomores. And, not having a scrimmage game, not making any excuses, to be able to learn from. Sometimes you learn more during that Friday night light competition. And truth of the matter is, Prince Avenue is a second or third round opponent in the playoffs. They're very well coached. They have a really good football team. And we knew that we had to go in and play a certain style and a certain way to give us a chance to win. And I thought we did everything to give us that chance to win, but at the same time, our youth showed it in opportune times. And you have to rely on your coaching, your fundamentals, and do things that coaches have asked you to do. And sometimes we got away from it. And then sometimes we did some things that were really good. They're a team that capitalized on mistakes. We had a drive, and I felt like we was driving the ball down the field, and we had an inopportune turnover in the second half as we were moving the ball. So it's things like that you can't have with mistakes and turnovers that cost you in those types of games where everything is magnified when you make a mistake against them. So, that's neither here nor there. We're watching film with the kids to make sure they understand some of the things that we were supposed to do that we didn't do, and to point out those errors. And like you said, it's something that you have to learn from. And that's a tough pill to swallow when you're up in control 14-0 at half, and you're going in and you're telling the guys like, look, this game is not over. We gotta finish. We gotta go out and we gotta complete the task. And then old momentum hit us a little bit, and we just never could overcome the adversity. Defensively, we just got to do a better job of finding a way to get off the field and get some stops. I felt like the first half we did a really good job. They made some mistakes, and we were able to capitalize on them and keep them out of the end zone. But the second half, they didn't make those same mistakes, and they were able to capitalize on some mistakes that we made. And part of that is bad eyes. Some of that, the quarterback had all day to throw the football. That's terrible when you're blitzing and trying to get to him, and all of a sudden he's just sitting back there with ample amount of time to throw the ball and deliver the mail, and he did a good job of that. We was trying to limit what they could do in the run game also, but they was able to get a few runs off it. On third and long, they end up converting and getting the first down. And I thought special teams, we kind of balanced it out. I think that kind of worked out in his favor. Sam did a good job of putting the ball in the end zone a couple of times, and we got to work on some things with punting. But I thought overall we did some good things, but our youth showed up at certain times during the course of the game that kind of cost us, and we gave up 30 points the second half, and you can't give up 30 points in a half and expect to win a football game.
Take me through the play calling when we call that double pass. What really set that up? Like I feel like that was really a really good play call. We just didn't get it down.
Well, that comes down to poor execution. We knew that early on when we teared the back out of the backfield that we saw them kind of running with it. We kind of been watching film on them from last year and this year from the scrimmage game, and we kind of saw some things that they were doing, and we knew that everybody in the stadium was going to run with Zay, number one, who's one of our better players, and we just want to get them to suck in to him, and the play worked perfect. It was just we didn't execute, we overthrew him, and you can't overthrow wide open people. You'd rather underthrow it so that he can at least catch the football. And then we had several other plays that we felt like was going to be there and that was there that we did a poor job of executing, or we got a holding call or something happened where a bunch of our explosive plays that we thought we were going to be able to get off, they got called back, or we just didn't execute to the way that we were capable of. So, that's some of that first game jitters, trying to work out the kinks, and that's on me. I have to find a way to get them a little bit more calmer during the course of a game and get them to understand, like, look, it's going to be okay. You may not make this play, but you got to win the next play. And I think sometimes we let the previous play go into the next play where we didn't focus in on that play is over with.
On all these like rivals and stuff like that, all these score predictions, they had us as like big underdogs. I feel like we played very well we played the first half especially. We kind of showed them that we can compete. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, anytime we step on the field, I feel like we can compete, and that's just the mentality that you have to install into your kids. I don't worry about social media and what other people think about us. I only worry about our football team and what we can do and what we can accomplish. And I always tell them, if we go out there and execute our game plan, and you're going to make some mistakes. Let's get that out. We're going to make some mistakes. We're human. That's why you play the game. But you can't make the big mistakes like turning over the football or busting coverages where people are wide open, things of that nature. You just got to try to keep it in front of you and continuously make them snap the football. And it was a couple of times they got in the red zone, and guess what? We caused a couple of turnovers, got a interception. One turnover we didn't receive, but it's okay. That's part of human error. And you just have to understand that you got to play and win the next play. With that being said, a lot of people do have you as underdogs, and I like being an underdog more than just going in there and saying, hey, you're supposed to win. But that's because we're scheduling good competition too now. We could have played somebody with lesser competition and walked out of there and been like, hey, the Thomson Bulldogs won and we're 1-0 and we're going on to the next game. Unfortunately, we're 0-1, but what can we learn? What can we pick up from playing an elite team first game? So we always try to schedule some guys to push our limits on offense, on defense, on special teams, on our coaches, because that helps prepare you for the playoffs. And we don't, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And that's what I keep trying to iterate to our guys. We don't hit a panic button. We just make adjustments as we need to put people in position to have a better chance to be successful. And that's what you learn from these types of games.
In case you missed it, we had our Thomson Bulldogs at 21, Prince Avenue Christian at 30. A little heartbreaker loss, but it was still a great game. All right, Coach, let's talk about the offense first. Let's get some key names out here.
Well, the stat leader for passing was Mr. Hunt. He ended up having like 149 yards passing, 7 of 12 on completions with a touchdown. Thought he did a good job. We kind of put him in some bad situations. I felt like for him to be so young, putting him in passing down, so we got to get him in there early to help protect him and hand the ball off a little bit and get into a rhythm. But being put in the position that he was put in, he did a really good job. Threw a couple balls away that was the only choice that he had. So I thought he performed pretty well. And he's as the season goes along, we want him to take over for us at quarterback, because that'll give you a quarterback for the next 3 years to get better game in and game out. Running back wise, JT Turman stepped up, ran the ball really hard, got behind his shoulder pads, and did some things that we know that he could do and had been seeing in practice. So we were really proud of him. Colin Belton had a big-time catch on third down, a curl route where he was able to turn into an explosive play, got some yak yards afterwards. And then Zay Brinson, which is our workhorse, he had about 20 carries for almost 100 yards rushing. He's really, really doing a good job. It's just, I think he tried to do too much at times, and we just got to find a way to calm him down and get him a break here or there so that he's not overwhelmed, and kind of help him out when he gets a little bit tired. Defensively, our inside linebackers stood out a little bit because they led the team in tackles. They had between the both of them, they had about 24 tackles together. That's a good sign. Aiden really does a good job at corner. Sometimes people don't even realize how good of a corner he is, but he did a really good job. Zay is a safety that he plays a good bit of both ways. He's an eraser at safety because he comes in the run game and cleans stuff up really good. I thought one or two times he got a little bit tired, so we got to do a better job as coaches to kind of recognize when he's getting a little winded. And then our outside backers, Clayton Ivey, kind of stood out a little bit to me with the way he was, pursuing to the football and had a few tackles himself. But the biggest thing was defensive line. We did not get any pressure. Held gap integrity a little bit sometimes, but then sometimes we didn't. And those are some of the things that we're gonna have to fix. Sam, our kicker, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember everything correctly, I think he had 2 touchbacks and he made all of his extra point kicks. So that's huge. We didn't get a chance to try a field goal at any time, but we feel very confident if we are in that situation where he can definitely make those field goals at about 45 yards on in. So, overall, you got some guys that kind of stood out. Offensive line, Wyatt Skravarka and Pittman, they just jump out because, Skravarka is finishing people when he has the opportunity, and Pittman, you don't realize he's just that little bulldog that'll bite you on your ankles and just keep working. And he's an undersized lineman, but he does a really good job of with his technique and keeping his motor going. And those are some of the guys that just stood out without even having to kind of watch film. But when you go back and film, you appreciate those guys a little bit more too.
Coach, I kind of want to go in a little different direction. Everybody out here that's a fan, we kind of get into the season right now. We used to say fall is here, but it's really still summer. And everybody's kind of into it. But for you, the season started a long time ago, probably back last year even, because every 2 years they redo regions and you have to start a new cycle with that, and you have to start with a new schedule. And I was wondering if you kind of tell people, I don't think people realize how much is involved with that and what you do and when that takes place. That took place a long time ago. You've been working for many months, and all of us have just kind of jumped out here and started the season. But for you, it's been a long process already.
Well, to be honest with you, last year in November, we started working on schedules. It's a little difficult because you don't know your regions at that moment in time. But once you kind of get put out the playoffs or you're in the playoffs making a deep run, when you go through that reclassification year, you start trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And one of the things that we always want to do is we want to play some good competition to push you. But we also want to, not have to travel as far for your fans and for your student athletes and your band and your cheerleaders. So you don't want to have to go back to places like Lee County or South Georgia where it's a 4 or 5 hour bus ride. So, we try to stay away from that as much as possible. But to be honest, Prince Avenue, we kind of linked up and kind of said we wanted to play each other. We felt like, it was 2 schools with similar type kids, numbers and everything. So we kind of got that date situated. And then once that happened, of course, we want to play. ARC reached out and was like, Coach, I just need a game. I need to get my guys ready for the region. And so, of course, they feel like that we're their tough competition to get them ready for region, which is a compliment to our program and what we have going on. Then you play Warren County, who is, we kind of talked about it earlier from the scrimmage game last year, where it's a lot of people involved. And we decided to, bring them on along and play them, because for us, that's a little rivalry, but also it's a big time money gate for us to help us out with some of the schools that don't bring many fans. So that game has got to kind of sustain you for that season, because this year, unfortunately, we play Burke away and we play Waco away. And so they're in our region. So you kind of figure out where those region games are, and then you got to find something to kind of bring fans to the stands with other games. And you can't just go out there and play some teams that won't bring fans, and then they know you're going to win big. You want to see good competitive games. That's what people want to pay their money for. And so the last but not least is, because of these power rankings and things that you have going on, you got to go out and schedule like 2 or 3 games that's going to have some guys that know how to go out and compete and win in other programs. And then we schedule Newton. They have like one of the top running backs in the nation. They do a really good job. They just won a game the other night against Douglas in double overtime. So that's 7A football. And we're sitting down here at 3A. So we're playing 4 classifications up, and that's fine. I tell the kids all the time, you want to play people that you're going to face something similar in the playoffs. And last year, Newton would be equivalent to what we faced in Carver Columbus. So we want to get an opportunity to go against teams like that early on to help prepare us for the playoffs. And everything we do is, kind of getting our kids ready to go make some noise in the playoffs. And that's what we want to do with our scheduling this football season.
All right, Coach. Let's look at this week's opponent. Let's look at ARC. Tell me a little bit about them.
Well, ARC is a really, really athletic group that we have coming into the Brickyard. Of course, we have changed the game time to 8 o'clock because of the heat for the next couple of weeks to try to subside this heat index that's been triple digits, and it's been really hot at 7 and 7:30. So we're pushing it back to try to keep the football players safe, the coaches, the cheerleaders, the band, the fans, everything. We're trying to kind of look out for everybody for the next 2 games that we will have at home. But ARC is really, really athletic. They have a couple of quarterbacks that they're going to rotate in that are really, really good. The one that stands out a little bit right now is Han. He's one of the Dream 16 guys that they have. He's going to try to get the ball to Lothan McBride. Lothan is a really good receiver that has kind of given a bunch of people fits. He's committed to go to Kennesaw State, so he's already has a scholarship offer, and that just tells you what kind of kid he is and what kind of athletic ability he has, because he's already committed. And then up front, they're humongous. They do a really good job with their offensive line of gap protection and pass protection to give the quarterback a lot of time. And they have a few other skilled players to go with it, but they do a really good job on offense, and they've been kind of like a juggernaut when it comes to scoring. Defensively, this year they have a new defensive coordinator, and they've been multiple. They've jumped in a 3-man front, they've jumped in a 4-man front, they've jumped in a 5-man front, but they keep 2 high safeties most of the time, and they do a lot of man-to-man or some read, and we're expecting them to load the box on us because that's what they've done in previous years to try to have some success. They like to bring pressure from different avenues and different places so that they can try to rattle us on offense, but we got to apply those rules and use our fundamentals and things to keep us churning the ball and getting first downs, because at the end of the day, you just want to continuously getting first downs, and first downs lead to touchdowns. So we just got to make sure we do a really good job of not getting overwhelmed of them jumping in and out of fronts and doing different things, and just apply your rules. Special team wise, when you got a multitude of athletes like they do, you just got to be careful where you kick the ball at and who you kicking it to. you definitely want to keep the ball out of number 12 hands, and everybody else, you just gonna have to kind of corral them and get them on the ground. They do a good job in their kicking game, and they also do a good job of covering with their athletes and putting them in the best possible situation where they can make plays on their special teams. So we got our hands full, going into game 2. We got some things that we needed to get corrected, and hopefully we can get that fixed this week as we go through our preparation. And then Friday night at 8 o'clock, we'll find out how much we've learned from the previous game.
Coach, you mentioned that we're moving the game to 8 o'clock to be a little bit cooler, hopefully. And also, I think you've had to move some practices this year to later on because of the heat index in the afternoon. But due to the heat, one of the big things I guess you would say is that you need people of depth at positions. How do you feel about our depth, and maybe does ARC have many players or whatever? Do you think that the heat could have any effect on that?
Well, we've had to move some practices to bringing them back at 6 o'clock just to deal with it, because when you read the wet bulb, it's a little different now than when you and I played, for sure. We had to go out there in it, but now they have what is called a wet bulb reading, where it reads the participation, it reads the humidity, it reads the heat index, it reads the temperature, and it gives you a reading. And if it ever hits, I think it's 92 off the top of my head, you can't even go outside. You see what I'm saying? So if it hits 91, then it's almost like you can practice with an hour with no equipment on, nothing but a helmet. And then if it's at like 86, then you can go full pads. And Georgia High School and the National Federation just has it where it's broken down to where your trainers, once they get the reading, and we have this period weather system now that's added to all of the coaches' phones to let them know, hey, all right, so you have to check it every 15 minutes to make sure that you're in compliance with what they have for the rules and regulations. Moving it back to 8 o'clock was a decision where, with these 110 and 108 heat indexes, I went to watch Burke and Greenbrier, and I just felt like they started at 7 o'clock. And they played on a Thursday night, and I just watched kids just melt in the in the football game, and kids cramping up everywhere and passing out and all kind of stuff. So I just didn't want that to be one of the situations that we had to deal with playing ARC. So I wanted to bump it back a little bit, just to keep kids safe for the most part. Of course we want to win. Of course we want to play football. But at the end of the day, the kids' safety is what's most important to me. And we just want to make sure that they're safe, our fans are safe, their kids are safe, our band is safe, and our cheerleaders. You don't want to put them in those extreme temperatures when they're telling you get a wet bulb reading of a certain amount, you can't even go outside, to put yourself in those elements. So that's part of the reason why we move the game back, and that's part of the reason why we do some of the stuff that we did to help protect everyone.
Thanks for watching, everybody. My name is Wyatt Lowe. This is Bill Beckham, and this is Coach Youngblood. And remember, the game this week is at 8 o'clock. Be there.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.